Jumping right into a cold pool this morning.
Indeed. Rock and roll, baby.
We just clicked record, and let's see, what are we talking about today? Well, last week
we got in the deep dive.
Yeah. We had a good one last week, diving deep into a lot of the things. And it's funny because I will kind of peripherally try to keep up on what happened this week or day by day, random, I don't know, algorithm stuff sometimes is what feeds me. And then the Davos thing I knew was like happening, but I just, so much of my cynical brain is like, fuck those guys, just fuck them. I don't care what they say. They can be like, we're going to do this and we're going to do that. And it's like, fuck you. I don't care.
Yeah.
But what was entertaining was if Lubnik and Trump and others are there just being like, this party's over, folks. Just letting you know.
Yeah. Well, actually,
party's over.
There was some gal, she's part of some institute. I mean, it's that the thing that drew me to the video was she said that what we're seeing in Minnesota is a color revolution. And then she cited some old English guy who was like the architect of color revolutions. And she said, isn't it interesting that all these like left-wing types are now invoking that guy's ghost, talking about, you know, how important he was when he was quite literally the color revolution guy. And she said,
was he like a marketing promo?
No, he was an old British guy. He was like a British lord or something like that, like back in the 1800s, that sort of came up with the idea of color revolutions destabilizing internally, and kind of the playbook that the Marxists all sort of picked up and ran with from that point on. You know, hey, what's up, Johnny? So I still haven't seen your episode, man. I'm gonna have to check that out.
But that was good. Yeah,
I'll watch it probably tonight or tomorrow. But yeah, but what she was saying is like, look, this is intentional, you know, which I kind of immediately start shying away from. I'm like, I don't buy the conspiracy thing. But she did paint a kind of compelling picture about like what the trajectory was. And what she basically said was what they did at Davos was to throw down a gauntlet. They said, hey, we're not going to be your muscle for color revolutions around the world anymore. We're America first. Go fuck yourself. We're not playing your game. And she kind of alluded to the idea that America has been sort of the enforcement arm of British ideology and policy around the world. So the rough idea being that like British hegemony didn't die. They just outsourced its apparatus to the United States, which I thought was sort of an interesting take.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. Like, so it was sort of interesting to see that, you know, that pivot, you know, in hindsight, and especially with her applied to it on Davos, was sort of interesting. Like, it's kind of, you know, global announcement to the world, like, hey, we're not playing by your dumbass rules anymore. We're not funding your NGOs. We're not going around destabilizing governments. We're not importing migrants. We're not doing the thing. We're not doing your project anymore. Is kind of what the takeaway was.
Yeah, and I was just randomly, actually yesterday, listening and thinking about all of that, where we don't always know. I mean, what we'll see is like the topics, and then there's the tropes. You eat the bugs, climate, weather, clouds are gonna like burn us alive, and all those things. And it's like, okay, there's that. But behind the scenes, there are these mechanisms that either they're kind of said, like the Federal Reserve Chairman will say things and you don't know what that means, or there's other things said that are behind the scenes and we do not hear. And so I know, good job, Johnny, on keeping our eyes on the ball there. But Caitlin Long was on what Bitcoin did last week sometime, and I listened to it yesterday, and she was saying that she's very, very smart, but she had an interesting point to make about how one thing that happened at Davos was that our banking connected people and powers that be basically said we are no longer using the long-time British bank for international settlement interest things called like LIBOR or
no, LIBOR is a rate setting. That's a rate setting institution, but maybe that relates to the Bank of International Settlements. I don't know.
Well, so yeah, maybe I'm saying it wrong, but they basically that we're going to stop using LIBOR and we're going to use a U.S. oriented one, like so far, something different.
Yeah.
And what that does is that all these um, banking rate settlement things going on, like through the Bank of England, are going to go away. And that itself was actually funding a whole bunch of stuff for um, Europe that like we weren't paying attention to or sort of didn't look at.
Huh.
Or we're like,
Interesting.
well, it gets money moving that way and we're just going to leave it alone. So, but they said, nope, we're done with that. So like the Europe has to refigure out, how do we fund this stuff that used to be printed for us, basically? Thanks, America.
Oh,
But I don't know.
interesting.
Well, I loved it. After Johnny mentioned it, and I listened to some of those videos. Lubnick's talk is pretty interesting. Trump has a long, quasi meandering one, but it's entertaining. And I just love seeing them. Like whether you love them or hate them, they're just telling all these. I don't know. You say oligarchy, I guess, of like cabal of planners, world globalist people, just squirming over like I don't know. Even if I don't agree with Trump, he could say some stuff and just be like, there. And
Yeah.
you just see him going, oh.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, just watching them contort, like there's someone that just walked in the room is just sort of naming the mechanisms, right? And that's really uncomfortable because the elites, the people that are in power, rely on the opacity of their power structure, right? Like that's how they gain and retain legitimacy is by not showing you what's going in the sausage, right? So, it's kind of funny watching like a disruptive sort of character like that sort of on the main stage, and it's yeah, and but it's neat because the U.S. occupies a sort of neat um, spot in just geopolitics, global political power projection, and power um, coordination because we are sort of insulated from a lot of like the infra politics of like the European continent or the rest of the world, right? So it's kind of a weird spot to be in a place where you can kind of go, you know what, we actually can say go fuck yourself, but but there are downstream consequences from that, right? Like you're like a star until you're not, and
Well,
you
we may. I know part of it's like, oh, we're not like in my mind from past political ideas is like, we've got to be a good neighbor, a partner with Europe. Europe and us, we got to work together for situations such as China or Russia or whatever. And I was like, America needs to be not the bully in the neighborhood, but the good neighbor in the neighborhood, all the good feeling liberal stuff. And when you see how criminal it all is and what they, things about Russia, China, Europe, and it's like, what in the hell? This is not the neighborhood you thought Mr. Rogers lived in. I was like, we're in an interesting situation where fiat struggles, Tether is doing things, and maybe like a growing thing. The tool that the U.S. needs, and the U.S. is sitting on it. And I feel like America is in the kind of a unique situation. China, I think, is struggling in its own ways, has its challenges. Xi Jinping is there's some interesting things going on with like an arrest of a military leader, and I don't know what's going on there, but it's not it's not normal politics. So I feel like America could be in a really strong position to really just assert itself and say, yeah, I mean, yeah, we're going to debase our currency and play the same fiat games, but we also have these extra tools that outruns you all. So,
well, yeah, I mean that's the funny thing is like people will point to China and go on one hand, especially like the sort of more left-leaning side of going China's emergent, China's going to be dominant, that kind of thing. But if you look at it internally, you go, yeah, they got that's not a smooth path for those guys. They got some issues.
yeah.
But then if you turn that lens around, you go, well, the U.S. isn't exactly standing. It's like you've got two hegemons that are deeply reliant on each other, and neither one can really exert dominance over the other without both. I mean, it's like it's kind of a simultaneous kick in the balls if they try and do anything to the other. So it's like I guess to make it a really crude analogy, it's like a really bad relationship, right? Like mom
Yeah.
and dad hate each other. They can't get along at all, but mom is broken in debt, dad's broken in debt, and both of them have, like mom's addicted to gambling and dad's addicted to hookers and cocaine. So how do we keep the family alive? You go, well, we just watch them like kind of ruin everything for the kids and hope they figure out a way to work together again. Maybe they can fall in love again somehow. I don't know, but that's sort of the way I kind of look at the world writ large.
They're
Right
all
now.
control freaks, though. These control freaks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that if you think about nuclear armed nations that are sort of orbiting like a bad relationship analogy, you kind of go, man, we're
Yeah.
here. We got to watch out. You got to be careful with mom and dad. We need to put some guardrails on mom and dad right now,
Yeah. And so as kids, we're it's like the adolescence maturity of humanity.
right?
We can start to see, I mean, it's like when I think about it, with the internet and other freedom thinking capabilities, to be like, I'm rebellious. I'm going to go hedonistically do whatever, and getting into trouble. And then you kind of grow up a little bit, and then you start with the information age. You can see more and more of, oh, I see more of the world. I see what's going on, huh? And then everything seems so much worse, and you're all angst ridden and goth because the world's so bad because you actually just opened your eyes, and everything is like so bad. And I feel isolated, but I'm also special. And but you're just opening your eyes and like coming of age.
Yeah.
And then you see mommy and daddy fighting, and you're like, I'm moving out. Like as soon as I'm legally able, I'm moving out, or maybe I should just run away now. How do I do that? How do you run away? Now, and then you have maybe something like Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah.
You can,
Well, I mean, that's kind of the neat thing about the age. It's like none of this stuff is new, right? Like it's all sort of rooted in the same grammar. Like, and that grammar goes all the way back to Mesopotamia, and it's just it's how people organize things, right? It's how people coordinate resources. It's how you coordinate your house. You know what I mean? Like if you think about what governments and states and all that have to do, it's the same thing you have to do with your kids, right? Like when if you have a kid, you have to socialize them. And so what's the first thing you do is you put them on a schedule. You say, hey, here's some things you have to do. And if they don't do them, then they go into debt for you. But they're all tasks that need to teach the kid how to operate on a schedule within a bounded constraint. They have to deliver, infrastructure supporting labor. And eventually, as it becomes more complex, you're going to start abstracting that out. It's going to go from like, okay, well, you need to, make your bed, right? And so you got to put them on a schedule, and you go, you didn't make your bed this time, so now you're going to lose something, right? So now, wait a minute, I'm in debt to you, right? Like I'm obligated to you, and if I fail to deliver, then I owe you something.
reverse allowance.
Right. But you see where that's going, right? So, but it's the same thing. If you have a village, you got to go, hey, we need someone to clean the field, or we need someone to dig the trench, or we need someone to, clear the dike, or whatever it is. That same obligation chain scales, right? But just like your kids, as they grow older, it might go from like, well, you're going to lose screen time, goes to like, well, you need to earn some stars. And if you have enough stars, then you get a thing. And so now you've not only abstracted it, but you've tied it to a symbol. And then that symbol could even be transported as they get older. You can go, well, hey, instead of 5 stars, I'm going to give you 10 marbles, and each marble, you got to fill up the marble bowl to get to, whatever prize you're looking for. So now you've abstracted it from a symbol to a unit, and then a unit into a token, right? But then if you just kind of spread that out, you go, well, yeah, of course. How else am I going to get the kid to do what I need him to do? But that's the same thing that's happening with these governments. So now if you just flash forward that to modern complexity, you go, well, where are all these rules and all this shit coming from? Oh, it's that same kind of idea. Like we need to make sure the infrastructure gets maintained. We need to make sure that we know who the people are in our borders. So there's all that legibility and all that kind of stuff that comes along with it. But then it also invites all this other complexity where we all end up in this sort of weird world that we exist in right now, where I can literally like push a button on my phone and buy a house in Shanghai and no one bats an eye. They're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense, right? I mean, it's like crazy if you think about it.
Oh yeah, and if to the extent you're willing, I do want to talk about your book if you want a little bit here. What you're saying brings thoughts to my head about the Tournament of King era, where it's easy for movies or otherwise. Where on one hand, so you imagine like there's the castle itself, there's the outer wall, and there's maybe another outer wall, and then the moat or whatever, and then the fields beyond, and it all has to work somehow together. And but there are hierarchies to who lives where and who's doing what. And a king, one king in a region or whatever, at one level has his goals or wants to get that land or has a beef with that other king or whatever. He's got he needs to extract to do goals. There's also a population management game puzzle of sir, the people are getting ornery or hungry or demanding this now. The peasants are beating on the gate, and it's like, you can't come in, daddy's not home. And or he's in France for a while or whatever. But kings got their goals, peasants get restless, natives get restless. So there's a population management aspect to all this too, where you need them feeling like they have a purpose, if you will, and things to do, and are taken care of well enough, I suppose. And you're kind of managing that. So then you extrapolate that onto the future where, and it maybe this is a tangent from your books thing, but it draws a parallel in my mind with the what is money question, but managing people who are like your economy, and keeping them busy enough, distracted enough, a sense of a kind of identity and purpose, and yet not restless.
Right.
Whether that takes bread and circuses or the jester or a fair or things to be doing, whether they feel like that's for a reason or because if you don't, things get hard for you, Sal.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you just trace it back from like the king to your house, right? Like if you had 10 kids, like what's your management structure look like, right? Like that's
a communist dictatorship here.
Well, it kind of would be, right? And there's also that idea of like, well, we got a lot of tasks around the house. We got a lot of kids sitting around not doing tasks. So we need to motivate them to do stuff. Like I don't want to be the one guy that has to mow the lawn, clear the gutters, fix the roof, wash the dishes, right? Like you go, hey, you guys are being a bunch of bums. You're being a bunch of free riders. You want to eat, get out there and get to work, right? But how you manage that becomes problematic, right? Because if you got one kid that goes, hey, wait a minute, I got my allowance this week. I had to mow the lawn 3 times. Susie only had to do the dishes. Like, how's that fair, right? So now you've got a local friction to solve. And how do you solve that friction? You have to abstract the thing. You go, well, here's why. Because doing the dishes is harder for XYZ reason, and mowing the lawn only happens XYZ times. And so if you really think about it, like 3 days of lawn mowing is kind of equivalent to like 6 days of dishwashing. And if you can come up with a fair abstraction where the kids go, okay, I kind of see why that's fair, then all of a sudden you've solved your problem, right?
You've got a ledger, like a whiteboard on the fridge with the chores and the people and the check boxes.
Right. Yeah.
And exactly. It's like, see, I did the dishes. Mommy did the laundry. Did you clean your room?
Yeah, exactly. And you know what? You didn't clean your room 3 times. So next week you're going to have to clean your room and do the dishes for Susie because she had to clean your room, right? You're in arrears. So you've made this abstraction. You created this debt structure, but it's the same thing that you're talking about with the king. So if you got a bunch of kids, you're kind of running out of tasks, and now you're just kind of giving them busy work. Like, what do? Go play Xbox. Like, get out of my hair. You know what I mean? So that's the same thing as mom in the 70s. Go outside and play. Like, I can't deal with you fuckers anymore, So, but if you go back earlier into like Little House on the Prairie time, like the tasks weren't running out. Like there was no
there's always stuff to do.
Yeah. So there was no idleness, and you had to be a little more dictatorial about how you got those tasks done. But as complexity provides more abundance, you have different management problems, right? Like, it's not just like we need tasks solved. It's like, well, we need tasks solved and I need to keep these people busy so I can do what I need to do, right? So yeah, that's kind of what you just described. It's just if you take away the artifice of like the walls and the I mean, because it's obviously far more complex for a king to manage a kingdom than it is for you to manage your household.
Mm-hmm.
But the same structure is in place, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's kind of
Yeah, and so Trump being daddy of his house, and then it's like, oh, but you're actually you got brothers and sisters in another house that this is the other bigger game that we play, and daddy went into the house and just was like,
nope.
nope, nope, I'm out, or
I'm
not that
taking your allowance.
I'm daddy actually.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I
call
mean,
yourselves mommy and daddy if you want, but I'm just saying I'm daddy,
yeah,
and good luck to you.
yeah.
Yeah, wow, kind of a shakeup, I would say. There's a lot changing right now, really. I mean, at a number of levels, and then I have not paid attention to, like, I don't know what is it, Minnesota, the social unrest and things, and with ICE, and oh boy,
It's all the same noise, dude. Like, it's the same sort of saber rattling. They just keep looking for a spark, like BLM, right? Like, and that
mhm.
it's a constant quest. Like anything that they can latch onto, and they being the people that are trying to foment and formulate. And I mean, it's like trying to take power, right?
Yeah,
And like I remember during the BLM thing, like people were talking about making BLM a political party and all this crazy shit. And you go like, the kind of funny thing about BLM is they were so clumsy and so self-interested that they kind of collapsed in on themselves, right? Like
well,
they
committed fraud and stuff too.
well,
Just because,
yeah, but I mean that's exactly it. They came in, they didn't come in as like a legit movement, right? They used the toolkit of color revolution to enrich themselves, which is a very cynical take on it, but that's exactly what happened,
yeah,
right?
they did.
And so if you look at this Minnesota thing, like I think what ends up happening is like because all of these things are occurring in a structure that doesn't reward color revolutions anymore, right? Like the faster path to reward is like, well, simulate a color revolution, capitalize on it, extract from it, and then go buy yourself a nice house and kind of just let the whole thing fade. Like, who cares, right? So so the Minnesota stuff is, to me, it's just like the Tesla burning, right? It's like it's this kind of flash pan thing. If it gains any traction, if the media can, make it seem like it's a legitimate thing, then maybe more people will kind of glom on, like the old boomers will come out and go, I'm doing like I did in the 60s kind of
Yeah,
thing.
right.
And then they'll get tired and they want to go back and play golf and, like eat at their favorite restaurant again. So, it's all just like there's so much built-in apathy around it. It's these just become transient ways to enrich the founders, so to speak. I don't know if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
enrichment. Well, like, Obama's CIA getting the color revolution going in Ukraine back in, was it 2011, 10, 11? I can't remember now.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit earlier than that, but set up an environment through which money could move and
Yeah.
circulate and enrichment, whatever.
Yeah.
Hence, then comes Putin into the scene, and what we got to this day. But um, random, not to change the subject, random thought, but like I guess was it yesterday? Nominee for new Fed chair. What's his name? Wash.
I don't know. I didn't even know they did that. Like,
Oh
I'm so
yeah.
disconnected from all this. I just like I literally look at it and I go, like, I just immediately roll my eyes. I have such a low tolerance for like current events that it's almost I just go like none of this
Well,
shit matters. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
you're
On
not
one
changing the
hand, it's like,
structure.
well, new head of the Fed, the new head of the Fed is an impactful change. Kevin Warsh.
Mm,
He uh, appears to be. There have been some clips of him talking about Bitcoin. He seems actually very pro Bitcoin in a way, where he's basically like what I heard from a clip, that if I could find it, maybe I could play it. But basically, like, Bitcoin doesn't care. Bitcoin is just a neutral asset. There was an interview with him, like, well, doesn't Bitcoin it's chaotic, it's volatile, it disrupts the systems, you could lose control. And he's like, Bitcoin's just Bitcoin.
Right.
And I'm not overtly pro or against it. It's actually a good tool. And what he said was that Bitcoin can create, what was the word he said? Discipline in the markets. Bitcoin creates discipline for the markets. Yeah, maybe Johnny knows better that Kevin Warsh is a Bitcoiner. So now I think he'll also conflate potentially crypto, and as the administration sees crypto as that other fiat outlet and whatever that is. But he explicitly referred to Bitcoin as providing economic discipline to markets, which was like basically you're not going to control it, you're not going to stop it. To be against it doesn't make sense, and it actually provides discipline, which is like that's actually pretty insightful. That said, I don't know how he avoids preventing economic crisis without printing money. I think they're going to, and Trump wants him, to reduce interest rates and print money, I'd say. So, what was that interview, Johnny? I have it here somewhere. It's probably in my X feed somewhere, but it was actually kind of interesting. It's a little long for playing here entirely, but there were clips in there that were, the interviewer was saying, there's a lot of FUD around Bitcoin and concern around Bitcoin. And Kevin Warsh was like, it's fine. It changes things, but isn't bad.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's kind of an interesting sort of wrinkle in development. But like you pointed out, though, when he gets into the chair, it's not like he has one thing, just like make sure this thing doesn't fall apart, dude. Like that's all they care about. Like we just need continuity, and any rupture, we just need to clamp down. Like that's all, so that's the path that we're on, regardless of whether or not the guy, his ideology gets subsumed immediately the second he sits in the chair, because there's a functional reality of the global economy that just doesn't care what you think. You know what I mean? Like you could be the most benevolent person in the world, but when you're confronted with the reality of like, what happens if this doesn't keep going? Like, well, everybody dies. So let's not do that, So I don't know, man. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Mr. Warsh and what he
grew
does.
up in a Jewish family, graduated from Stanford, Bachelor of Arts in Public Policy in 1992, Juris Doctor cum laude from Harvard. Anyway, a lot of Bitcoiners are happy with the pick. Anyway, I think it's probably a better direction, a good direction. And now ultimately it's the Fed. It's still the Federal Reserve.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the funny thing is like what I've kind of noticed about Bitcoiners is especially the more vocal, prolific, like public personas in Bitcoin spaces tend to be they're kind of like, they're kind of like autistic puppies, they're sort of just like, oh, shiny thing. Like I don't see a lot of coherence or stability in their viewpoints. They'll just like bounce around. And, it's probably algorithmic thinking, right? Like, it's like, well, this is my brand. This is how I stay relevant. Like, you can't be me and just be like, meh, because like, who wants to listen to a guy going, meh, like it's sort of, well,
like as soon as news comes out, people jump on it with a quick take or a quick summary, and it's like throwing it out there. We're still grappling with what does this mean? Who is this guy?
Well, that's sort of the virality of it all, right? Like what they're really going for is like, I hope I'm the guy that lands the best descriptor that travels, right? Like that's the economy that they're operating in. Like, can I come up with a hot take that everyone else starts retweeting? And then I get to have a bigger, broader conversation and attract more listeners, followers, etc. Right? So that's the overall economy there. So there's this like strong incentive to like, hey, here's a new breaking thing. Here's my 2 cents take. And 99% of them are just going to drift into the void. A lot of them are just going to overlap. And it's the one that sort of resonates the strongest carries, right? So I don't know, man. It's a weird, like the attention economy is weird, man. Like it's kind of a trip to sort of evaluate from the 10,000 foot view. You just go, this is sort of an interesting wrinkle in the economy.
You might, I think it's I think it's this interview here, but this it's worth a listen. I mean, I don't know how long ago this was exactly. Oh, where here we go. No, no, no. But yeah, so I mean,
is he wearing an orange tie? That's pretty dope.
yeah. Well, yeah, that's interesting too. But so yeah, Adam Livingston saying basically, okay, it's easy to throw out a kind of a headline, attractive headline, soft launch the Bitcoin standard. One can hope. I have such little trust in anyone at a power that, I mean, he's going to have all of his governors to manage that are explicitly on, say, a Democratic political bent. So can he wrangle that? I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know how the politics within the Federal Reserve works, or what he can just make happen versus grappling with all the governors. But
yeah, the institutional reality. Well, that's the thing, is everybody that gets into the space is navigating institutional reality, which kind of traces me back to that like very cynical take on Black Lives Matter. Like these positions they're so embedded in institutions that it's like, what can I do? Nothing. Like, you'll be lucky if you don't walk out of here with your head on a platter. So your best bet is to just like try and, survive, right? And if you're able to survive, the next best spot is to make sure that you're super rich when you're done, because you're going to get your ass handed to you one way or the other. You can't avoid it in this position. So the price you're paying right now for being a public figure that's going to get your ass handed to you is to make sure that you can convert that to a durable revenue stream on the way out the door, right? And so it kind of precludes, or it like leaves aside any, someone comes out, I'm going to shake this up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. Like, whether you're Robert Kennedy, Donald Trump, Warsh, whoever, when you walk into the institution, it's just like, oh God, well, I hope I can make some money out of this, and I hope I don't get killed. Okay, cool. That's the game I'm playing. But it gets into that Game of Thrones sort of like either you win or you die sort of mentality, right? And so we'll see what this guy does, I guess, and even gets the job to begin with. And there's all sorts of fun going on there.
The color revolution in Ukraine, I guess that was earlier than I thought. 2004, 2005. That was called the Orange Revolution.
Yeah.
I vaguely remember that, but
yeah. Well, I mean, the whole Putin trajectory, depending on who you're talking to, it's either like Putin is doing logical geopolitical maneuvering, or he's a brutal, crazy dictator kind of thing. But, I mean, if you look at the reality of it, it's like, can Russia threaten Europe? No, they can barely contain Ukraine. Like, what are you talking about? How are they the threat on your fucking eastern border? Like, it's insane, right? I give a lot more credence to the idea that says, well, NATO encroachment is driving this conflict, not Putin's designs on global domination. Because that, like, they're trying to invoke this imagery of like Hitler storming across Europe kind of thing. And I'm like, Putin's not anywhere near that capability right now. Like, yeah, he's got an arsenal of nukes, but like, do you know what that means in terms of mobilization? And like, that just doesn't fly, dude. Like, it's not going to happen. So
yeah, and the war's changed with drones and
dude, yeah, it's a completely different battlefield. So all this stuff, it just ends up being like,
and yeah,
just noise. Yeah, it's I don't know, it's all noise.
I find it fascinating. One thing Caitlin Long that I listened to yesterday, what she mentioned was that typically the precedent is that when a Fed chair steps down, they retire, like they quit, because so his term as Fed chair is up in May, but his term as actually remaining as a governor goes until 2030 something, or for quite a while longer. So he technically wouldn't have to retire, and I think most all Fed chairs always have, because they don't want to have a legacy Fed chair sitting there as like a
as a wrinkle.
What's the term basically, but like a sitting on the sidelines, but kind of like people listen to him still, be like,
right. Yeah.
So if they wanted to keep fighting this game, and Biddy says, "What's up?" Well, good morning, Biddy.
Hey, what's up, sweet baby?
It's mid morning for Biddy, or midday, middle of the day. Yeah, so like basically it'd be interesting if Jerome stepped down but didn't leave the Fed, then there is then probably likely a contingent of Powell and all the basically I'll say Democrat, but politically bent uh, anti-Trump forces that are maybe stick in the mud at best. I don't
Yeah,
know.
maybe that could be. I don't know how much. I mean, what we can't see is like what's going on in the background, and that is the thing that is really telling. Like you can see the public facing statements, you can see the public facing posturing, but what happens in the background is very, very different. It's kind of like when you watch two senators up on some C-SPAN debate and they're screaming and yelling and calling each other names. But that day, or later that day, they're going to go and play golf and have lunch together, and kind of they basically just get along because they're part of the same system, right?
I don't know about Powell and Trump though, because I mean Powell made his video where like they saying that they got like indicted when really according to the Treasury they just got a letter and it wasn't an indictment. But Powell has been making it a bit of a fight himself. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, but again, that's all public facing shit, right? Like, we don't know. Like, there was some movie, it was some boxing movie, right? And it was like, I think it was about like Ali and Frazier or something like that. And like one of the fighters was kind of, like publicly, these guys are calling each other names and I'm going to bang your mama and all this kind of crazy stuff. But behind the scenes, the guy's like, hey, man, I really need this fight. And you go, I get it. Yeah, well, we can work this out. We'll get something. We'll make sure we take care of you. Like, they're not like they're buddies, right? But like they know what game they're playing, and they play it publicly to great effect, and then they play it privately to great effect, right? So, is like, if you look at like Conor McGregor and what's his face, Habib, like if you look at that public conflict, I think Conor was playing the hey, we both know what we're doing here kind of game, and the other guy was like, no, we're not. You insulted me. I will kill you. Like he took it all personally, and he didn't incorporate or wasn't playing the same game that Conor assumed he was, right? So they ended up like in this very divergent sort of space, as a relationship. And so I don't know if like the Trump Powell thing is more like Ali Frazier or if it's more like Habib Connor, if that makes sense, right? Like, I don't know if there's one of them's like, you know what, this is war, or if it's just like, okay, we know what we're doing here. Like, I'm trying to posture myself so I can go to a think tank and not get laughed out of office. You're trying to posture to make it look like you kicked me out of office. So, like, how are we going to play this, right? Like, it's sort of that kind of thing.
Say inside baseball where.
Inside baseball.
Yeah, I saw that too, Johnny. Yeah, basically, at the Fed, there's like, I literally heard these numbers where there's like 10 that are like strongly identified Democrat and like one who's not. They're very partisan, or well, unipartisan, but partisan.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a reason for that. Like, they all came out of institutions that are all partisan, right? Like, the people that are running the Fed are people that came out of Stanford, Harvard, Yale, but those are all captured institutions by a left-leaning ideology, right? So, like, and that left-leaning ideology funds their endowments, and but it's kind of funny because they're all left-leaning, like ideologically and publicly, but privately they're part of this institutional lineage, right? They're very much like institutional people that are maintaining the very thing that the left says they hate. So it's kind of a weird balancing act how they navigate that and make it plausible. Like, if you step back, you go, well, you're obviously not a person that cares about the poor and all this kind of stuff, because you do shit that just absolutely wrecks those people, right? But somehow they get to keep the illusion going. They get to keep acting like, hey, no, I'm really. Well, it's like that bookstore guy. Like, he's out there. That guy that's across the street from the MicroSeed office, right? Like, he's all liberal, like fruity tooty, kind of like, oh, I'm here to help the homeless and But meanwhile, it's like you're doing things that are making their life worse. You're causing all kinds of problems for your neighbors, and you're cloaking it all in this like moral language that actually benefits your bookstore, because you get way more customers because you're getting attention for your bookstore. So like, there's this, like, again, it's like this very cynical sort of take on the world, I think, but I think it's a realistic view. It's like, you go, well, obviously your left-leaning liberal ideas don't work very well, just like the right-leaning ideals don't work very well, but both of you use it to great effect to enrich yourselves. It's just, you just like have an ideological like suit, and then behind the scenes you're just like, meh, it's just all sort of rational self-interest, right? So I don't know.
Yeah. So as a sport, from an audience perspective, boxing is an easy metaphor for two players that are going to fight.
Yeah.
And as a new entrant into the game, as an athlete yourself, you enter the game and you got there because you won. You're good at what you do. You're an athlete and you win, and you're there to win.
Right.
And you're going to fight. You're going to fight, and you're there to win. You want to win. You want to win every time. And then you get to a level where the grease that maintains the system, that maintains the arena, that maintains the sport, and maintains interest, changes, pro wrestling into modern pro wrestling, which is a show.
Yeah, right.
And so you can go all the way down from, like, at one point wrestlers were wrestling to win and to show off skill and all that stuff. And that naturally devolves into just kind of a wink, wink. This is all fucking fake.
Yeah.
But it's a show.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, like, look at that Jake Paul fight. Like, that guy got his ass handed to him, right? Because it's like the first time he actually fought a boxer that wasn't 60 years old, or, that's current and all this kind of stuff. Completely outclassed from the get. Like, all that guy did was run around the ring, right? And try and duck and slam. But behind the scenes, like, both those guys made just absolute truck tons of money off that spectacle. But it starts drifting. Like, it's a legit boxing match, right? And this is not to say Jake Paul isn't a boxer. Like, he's a boxer. Like, there's no denying it. And he's not a world-class boxer, right? But he's a guy that's levered the machinery of world-class boxing to great personal advantage. And he's making, like Tyson made a truck ton of money just walking in that ring. 60-year-old guy, like, fighting a YouTuber. It's like, but somehow they turned that into a $50 million spectacle, right? But that's what you kind of touched on, is like they're right on the bleeding edge of, like, a lot of this is just becoming all WWE everywhere all the time, right? Whether it's MMA or boxing or, racing sports or whatever it is, like, it gets, yeah, exactly, right? Without the fatal consequences, so it's, I don't know, man. It's kind of a weird world.
I know what is real. And hence it's so natural and easy to get quite conspiracy minded, conspiracy reality. The word conspiracy insinuates things that are whatever, has tropes of its own, but, like, is it not? Yeah. Is it not a show?
It is. I mean, that's sort of the ultimate irony of it all, is like, if you strip away all the artifice, it's a show, and we're all sort of self-selecting into the audience. We're just like, yeah, okay, we'll watch this show, and we'll believe the fictions of the show, and we'll adopt the fictions of the show, and we'll operate within the fictions of the show. But it's all sort of artifice and fiction, right? And, like, the second you kind of pop the bubble, you go, wait a minute, like, wait, what are we doing here? But then you start going, well, we've all been operating in this fiction for so long. Where do we go? And you're like, I don't know, dude. Like, we kind of have to live in the Matrix. Like, you can't get away from the Matrix anymore, because if the second you go outside, you end up in the literal, like, world that the Matrix people are in, where, like, do you really want to break free from your bubble and walk around in some dank pit with no sunlight and, ruined ecology, and, like, that sounds terrible. like, you see the world that the robot thing overlords created in the Matrix. You go, do you want everyone to wake up and go wander into that now? Like, everyone would just be like, what did you do, man? Like, I had it great in there. Like, yeah, I had to go and do some bullshit job and, like, push paper around the office. But the world you woke me up from, the world you freed me from, is like, it looks horrible. Like, there's a bunch of broken machines everywhere. There's no plants. It's just this dark, dank, like, shell of what civilization used to look like. So why would you want me, put me back in the Matrix as quick as you can, boot that thing back up,
Yeah. And going way back, because I remember thinking of this, hearing about this, and Socrates, the allegory of the cave.
Now we're getting into some deep stuff.
The philosopher, yeah, right. The philosopher is like a prisoner freed from the cave, comes to understand that the shadows on the wall are not the direct source of the images seen. understanding to perceive higher levels of reality. However, the other inmates, nice word there, of the cave do not desire to leave their prison, for they know no better life.
Yeah.
It's Socrates' cave, or Plato's cave, maybe.
Yeah,
No,
the allegory of the cave, it looks like. Yeah, Plato.
Plato.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's if you take that a step further and you go, not only is the shadow on the cave like a comfort, it's like that's the actual structure that you exist in.
yeah.
Like we built our whole society on the shadow on the wall, and you go, ooh, well, what happens when you take the shadow away? That's like what does that world look like? I don't want to be in that world. Like I literally don't want to be in an ANCAP world where all this shit collapses, right? Because that like I'm dead, dude. Like I'm not gonna survive that. Like what are
I'd
you
be
talking
fine.
about? You would
Johnny
not,
would be
dude.
fine.
You'd be wrecked, man. Like maybe
Um,
Johnny would. I don't know, but
so Johnny and I talked about this a little bit, and I've talked to other people. So like people I've had on that are farmers, ranchers, living on land, have good neighbors. You have your water, you have your food, you have your family and your faith and your community. You're fine. And so you can more easily see the shadow on the walls and like, hey, look at all this stuff going on out there. And all like you don't want it to collapse, do you? And you'd be like, you might feel like one of those far off rural farms in France, and like the Nazis are sweeping through, and the Allies sweep back through, and as a farm in France somewhere off to the side, you're like, not to say unscathed completely, but you kept farming
yeah,
and you were fine. And it's like, are they going to come and get my stuff? Maybe that's a little bit of like, well, hope not, but
right.
if
Well,
they
but that's the
did,
thing. That's not collapse, dude. That's just rupture, right? Like World War II didn't collapse anything. It just was costly. It's just a costly conflict. So, collapse is like the grid goes down and, all commerce stops and money disappears. And we're going to go to, whatever ANCAP fantasy that is. That's a very different world. That's not like, well, there's a localized conflict over there and we can kind of stay out. Just like the same farmers during the Depression, like there were people that, when they were kids, depression broke out, mom and dad like, oh man, we're broke, this is hard. Hey, why don't we send the kids off to the farm to stay with grandma and grandpa? And those kids grew up just like, depression, what are you talking about? It was great. Like I milked cows, I was kind of cruised around, I didn't really notice anything. Grandma and grandpa might have been going like, this is kind of tight, we gotta put baling wire on the tractor to keep it going because we can't get a part and stuff like that. But overall everything was fine. But that's like minor structural drift. That's just a minor structural like wrinkle. That's not like the structure collapsed. Because the people in charge of the structure went and did all these gyrations in the background to make sure the structure survives. They just move numbers around on a balance sheet. They tweak things here and there. They make these people suffer. They make these people pay, and they make these people whole. So, but that's all that's happening in the background. But meanwhile, the overall structure still exists. Like America didn't collapse. We didn't suddenly not have countries because World War II. Like every country kept its borders. It's just like different people moved in for a little while and broke some shit and then they left. So it's like, but when I'm talking like collapse, and you go like, if there's a societal collapse, like some of these ideas sort of circulate around to go, you're all dead. Like there's no like, you're not gonna like make it out of this thing. And if you do make it out of this thing, it's gonna be like, you're gonna envy the people that got killed early is kind of what my point is. You're not gonna be like going, oh, this is great. You're gonna be like watching your kids starve to death slowly. So I don't know, man. Like, or you're gonna watch your kids get enslaved, or you're gonna watch like the local neighbors start turning on each other, or you're gonna watch people gang up, or you're gonna watch raiders come in, or it's not gonna be pretty. It's gonna be dark. It's going to be the dark ages again. And you're going to have all the same problems that they had during the dark ages. So you're going to have religious zealots coming in and taking power and doing that kind of stuff. It's not a pretty scenario,
It's easy to envisage sort of like Walking Dead vibe collapse. It's the Armageddon fetish makes good TV and books, and you can think about it. It's sort of like this hardcore, simple, tangible world of like, imagine if and what you'd do. And I guess it's hard to imagine that level of collapse versus what seems would be hard to avoid might be ruptures.
Yeah. Well,
Leaking
Rupture
through.
is navigable, but what
Oh, that's
Johnny was
one of my
saying,
favorite books. I
yeah,
was just gonna say, so it's dark,
yeah. If
but
you
man,
want to really
20
feel gross, read the Road. Like, don't watch the
Cormac
movies, read the
McCarthy.
book. Yeah, Cormac
I
McCarthy.
read so when that came out, and I don't know how I stumbled upon it because I didn't read a lot of Cormac McCarthy. Great author, by the way.
Yeah,
It is very different. There's like no punctuation, and I think it's interesting from the perspective of this boy and his dad. Oh my goodness, I appreciated the movie too, but it is not like the
yeah.
book. I
It
mean, it's
does
like
not
the book,
capture
but
the book.
the
Yeah,
book that was one of my favorite to this day. I mean, that's when I was also very kind of black pilled and well before Bitcoin. I read The Road and I was like, oh my gosh, I've read that book 3 times over the last 2 decades and it's on my shelf. One of my favorite longtime books of like, now this is what collapse looks like.
right. Yeah, exactly. That is like the real. I mean, that was such a stark picture that guy painted. Like, I
Oh
remember
my
I picked that
goodness.
book up because my ex girlfriend's mom was like, "Oh, you might like this book. I just finished it. It's kind of dark," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I'll check it out." And I literally read it cover to cover,
I
like
did too.
that night. Like, I couldn't put it down. I was like, "Oh my
Yeah.
god, oh my god," and you don't walk away from it like, you kind of walk away from it like,
It kind of
ah,
shook me.
yeah,
It changed my thinking for years. I was like, well, there's that. And then
yeah.
and again, looking around the world, like all these things and what props that up and the spider webs that hold things together and how it continues to work. And then, so then, it's kind of unknown what kind of triggers that world there, but it's something to the effect
Yeah,
of
something bad.
nuclear, um, winter, I guess,
Yeah,
perhaps.
or
But
like nuclear level event is kind of what
and there
it's.
was and I think we totally derailed. You were in the middle of a thought, and I
No. This is
jumped in with The Road because of Johnny. But that book, anyway. Exactly, Johnny. So I was going through some similar things in a way, or leading up to that life situation. So one thing that when I first read it, and I was kind of like, well, I don't resonate as much with like why did the wife just give up? Um,
Mm,
I get it though,
yeah,
where my 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 wife now and other people that you have good relationships with in our normie world, and then something like that happens, and there are people that'll just be like catatonic,
yeah.
done,
This isn't worth it.
freaking out, or so horribly depressed or lost, and they would just choose to stop and
Yeah,
die.
yeah,
Even as you have maybe a child in the world or something.
right.
And I would be in a situation where what me and my kid are going to do what it takes. Like, well, what happened to mom? Well, mom's gone. Like
Yeah,
mom's just gone. Wasn't for this world. So that
yeah,
hit me too. It's like, wow, that could be a very classic situation. I hate
right.
to say.
Well, I mean that's the situation. I think that's why I'm sort of more like an institutional realist, right? I go like we don't want that. Like that's not a pretty outcome, and it looks ugly and it's gross and it's brutal and it's not pleasant, right? And I think that's interesting because like as a divorced father, right, like that absolutely would resonate because it's like, oh my god, it's so visceral, and like I think people envision the road warrior, right, and
Yeah.
what they get is not so tidy, it's not so like, well, as long as I'm tough, I can navigate this world and I'm gonna blast the fucking mohawk guy and that's gonna be fine, and and like the good guy wins kind of trope. It's more like the good guy is going to get compromised on every possible level, and is gonna end up doing things that are abhorrent just to maybe survive long enough to suffer a horrible death. So it's like, what are we talking
Yeah.
about here?
You have to
So
be like you have to be a bit of a psychopath, good or bad, to survive.
yeah,
That
I mean,
that
like the adaptation you'd have to make, like who would you become?
oh,
Just
man.
look at the guy in Cormac McCarthy's book. Like, who did he become? Vicious, brutal, and empathy goes out the window. And the only thing that kept him going was the fact that he had someone else. Like he probably would have given up too, is my sort of guess from reading the book. Like, if it wasn't for the kid and wife kills herself, he's just like, fuck am I going to do this for? You know?
Yeah. Well, and right up until just the last, not to give the book away, but right up until the last couple of pages, like, it is tragically a downer. Like, you're just like, oh no, this is horrible. And right at the end, there's this glimmer of there are good people in the world. Like,
Right.
there is hope. There are still good people, and that's a theme throughout the book. Is people run into these survival type situations or whatever, and you got to do what you got to do to survive. And at the other hand, like, the moral issue of, are the values still there, or do you just completely forget them? Are you still like a good person? Can you still strive for the good, or do you give up and say, no, whatever it takes, got to survive, do what that is, become master blaster of shit town, or whatever.
Yeah.
Or are there still good people? Yeah. And
so, well, I mean, ultimately, like, what we're kind of circling here is like the idea that, like, we don't want those outcomes no matter what, like,
yeah.
it's better to be standing in a Soviet breadline than it is to be wondering what happens if you die and there's no one to take care of your kid, like that. One is a tolerable, exercise, and the other is like an existential crisis, so I don't know, man. Like, we have to step back and admire the structure we've created, and then also kind of appreciate that, like, hey, we need to be careful with this thing, right? Like, we don't want it to collapse around us, but we also don't want to allow it to continue being a thing that increases problems, right? So
yeah,
it's a weird balance.
You can well, and hopefully the great realignment continues. And if you need to survive, you can live on bugs. You can eat bugs. It sounds weird. People are like, well, who'd get all the animals? There aren't enough animals. There are, you can eat bugs.
Well, enjoy being vegetarian, because that's where you're headed. Yeah, it's
your plants, eat the bugs.
Yeah.
So your book, to the extent you want to reveal, I can't remember if I'd finished it by the time. No, I hadn't quite finished it last week, and it was last weekend that I actually did finish it. Last weekend. So congratulations. I can only just, I don't know. I've emailed and we've chatted, but I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, wow. I've said, wow, just wow. I don't know how you've cranked this out and done so well with the quality you've done it, with the length and depth and the arc of it, the whole thing. You've done it, man.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. That's sort of one of the interesting things.
On a positive note.
I appreciate that. And it's one of those things that it's a little like weird to contemplate, because I'm operating in a domain that's not, normal right now, right? Like I have access to resources and tools. Like, I was just thinking about this earlier, just sort of randomly, like when I woke up. Like, it literally would have taken me 5 years to write that book. Like, if I just had to do it the way I did, like the way I wrote my research papers back in the day. Like, you got to Google everything. You got to like parse this stuff out. You got to test your own arguments. It's like there's so many like barriers, but they're all just frictions to the kind of work I'm doing, right? Because it's like deep time historical analysis. So, and there's a lot of domains. There's like a lot of yards that I'm crossing through to get from one town to the other. So it's like it's hard to even take credit for like being able to, because it's more like I've been enabled more than being able natively, right? Like, I think I could have created this book, in a previous era. Like, I could have started this book in 2010 and I probably would have finished it by 2017, kind of thing, right? But now with modern tools, it's like, well, I can start this book in 2025 and finish it by 2026, but that's just, but it's a place where the academy and academia hasn't really reconciled with yet, and so it's sort of a dangerous territory, I think, just from institutional standpoint, but for me personally, it's like it's super rewarding because I can go like, yeah, I got to watch my thought, my theory, my arguments, my ideas. I got to focus and funnel those in a way that's super productive in a relatively short amount of time. So it's sort of exciting, but I'm kind of on the wrong side of like the traditional track, so to speak. So I don't know.
It stands on its own. It's not, you use tools as modern researchers always have, like, knowing how to get the books, have access to the library. Google comes around. Oh, now you can search for stuff. AI comes around. Oh, now you can challenge ideas and seek more and find out what you wouldn't have found and
Yeah.
find the unknown unknowns. And so using the tools and yet having written it, it's just new tools in a modern era, but increasing the capability of an author. And I mean, literally, it's unbelievably impressive. Bring Fact says he's got his MicroSeed today.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Thank you,
dude.
Yeah, you have to let me know how it goes, man. And Johnny, I'd be more than happy to send you the book. I've got it out to publishers right now, so I'm sort of waiting on what that the outcome of that kind of process. But
do you have a title that you want to reveal or anything that way, or just keep it for now?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of bouncing around titles right now, but the title I'm sort of orienting towards is The Architecture of Obligation, an extractive state theory, or The Architecture of Obligation and extractive state theory of money. So
ESTM, extractive state theory of money, was an acronym that, is it new? Because, okay, so you can go, there's theories of money. What is money? That's kind of an ultimate question. And people think, well, it started with barter and the need for beads and the need for something, and that came into coinage and that became money. And it's like, it's much deeper than that. And it's not the things, it's not the money that you think is a tangible thing and solving barter and the coincidence of wants. It's so much deeper than that. And it's not the money, it's the systems involved. And so, so you can go from the commoditist theory, the creditist theory, the chartalist theory, but overarching kind of all of that to what you're speaking to is the ESTM, the extraction state theory of money.
Yeah, the extractive state theory of money. And it's what I've sort of realized is it's more like a sociology of money. It's not really like a monetary theory. You know what I mean? Like, it's not econometric, it's not economics, it's not econ 101. It's sort of like more like, what are the institutions? What's the architecture of institutional obligation? And the short version of it is like, what conditions create, or what conditions and what solutions come from coordination needs under bounded constraints, right? Yeah. And that's where that sort of illustration about the family unit comes from. It's like, how do you satisfy coordination needs under the bounded constraint? And that's sort of the mechanism of test across, 10,000 years of history, basically, and in some cases even longer. But the thing that's sort of unique about the work is like the genius is in all the people that created the architecture that I can climb, right? Like James C. Scott, David Graeber, Mitchell Hines back in the day, kind of, who's sort of now repopularized within MMT circles and things like that. Like that's the thing that I can kind of weave together, but just moving those parts around isn't really anything in and of itself, right? Like, it can look impressive from like a high level view. You go like, wow, how do you command all this stuff? And I go, well, but it's not really a command of it. It's like, these people commanded it. They outlined this structure. They made everything possible. All I did was kind of look and go, there's a path between this town and that town, and it kind of looks like this, and that's it. You know what I mean? So it sort of relegates me more to like a role of a cartographer, that I just have to be careful in how I document that cartography is all I've really done here. And if that turns out to be a shitty synthesis, then I go, well, then let it fail, but I'm not married to the idea. It's just more like, I think it's got some explanatory power is sort of where I'm at, if that makes sense.
I think it's novel, well documented, and correct. And I think,
thank you.
I think people will, if people are willing to look at it and absorb it just a bit, and even if all they do is read chapter 1, I think they'll get a hook of like, oh, this is different. I wonder about more. And
Yeah.
it connects through and through history. And you get to these latter chapters where it starts to be like, oh, this is what people mean when they think of the matrix.
Right.
And can you just leave the matrix? Or because people will be like, oh, well, Bitcoin fixes this. Bitcoin fixes it. You can just leave. And it's like, can you?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's deeper and more, you are more legible voluntarily than you
Might
think.
realize. Yeah.
And you want that. And so I mean you can maybe put up constraints on maintaining more of your privacy and all that. But man, if you're the matrix remains, and you may you even as escape as you get from the matrix, you may always have that foot or hand in the plug-in to the matrix to simply exist and connect at some normie level,
Yeah.
even as you have a foot out the door. But you may not fully leave unless your life is very different.
Right. Right.
uh,
Well, and that's I I actually really enjoy that perspective because it kind of sums what the thing is. Like I tried so hard to not get into somebody's camp, right? I tried so hard not to be in some sort of tribal alignment with anything, right? And so like I kind of skirt around the whole Marxist idea of like if you take Marxism, they go, hey, these structures, these institutional structures are extractive. So therefore the solution is emancipation. And I go, well, and I just kind of go right around that. But like the liberal, sort of like free market liberal in the classic sense, ideas of like, well, this is voluntary, this is neutral. You go, well, I kind of skirt that too, right? Because you go, but it's not. I mean, I can see how you think that, and it doesn't, so I don't end up on either side of the polarized debates, and then I end up sort of threading in this weird sort of world of like, well, there's no really outside to this. Like, you don't get outside the argument. You're always inside the argument, no matter which camp you want to hop into. So the only question left is like, well, what does it look like to probe the inside of the matrix, not how do we get out of the matrix, right? How do we constrain the matrix so the weird little glitches don't show up, and how do we make the matrix more fair, and how do we make it more tolerable, and what friction do we keep in the matrix and things like that. So yeah, exactly. That's exactly right, Johnny.
that is true. With great responsibility becomes you don't know what you're getting into.
Yeah.
And so, like at the end of the third Matrix movie, and Neo merges with the mothership architect, whoever that is, and it's kind of like the Matrix isn't going away, but the Matrix is getting an orange pill, maybe great realignment, and yet the Matrix shall exist, which is an interesting sort of imagination analogy. But the Bitcoin is getting quite matrixified.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Like I have my personal opinions about what would be maxi ideal for Bitcoin, and yet the inevitability of what Bitcoin is doing to the system, what the system wants to do with Bitcoin, is a force of its own kind of nature. That I'm like, well, I have my opinions, but I'm basically trying to pay attention and observe it. And as long as on ramps and off ramps are there, or that Bitcoiners can use the protocol themselves and that it remains decentralized and secure, I remain maxi Bitcoiner.
Yeah. Well,
The
I mean,
Matrix shall
yeah.
use Bitcoin.
Well, that's the thing is like you look at it and it strips away a lot of that artifice of inevitability, and it kind of grounds it more in a little bit of like, well, it's a possibility, but we have to tend to it with care, with great care. Like we can't just take it for granted. And I think that's the mistake that is currently being made right now is people just assume, oh yeah, this is perfect money. It's not gonna, it's not co-optable. It's uncensorable. Like all those things are not necessarily true. And so when you start approaching it from that standpoint, which is why my advocacy kind of for within Bitcoin spaces always translates back to like we need to protect this thing because it's fragile and rare. And the sort of looming disappointment is that like I don't see anyone else doing that, right? Or at least giving it the weight that I think it deserves. So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, run a node and
yeah, run a node
now, and Ahmad can relate to this. He was there, but I mean, I love Max Kaiser. I having met him and seen him on stage, and the rants he goes on. I used to kind of hold him at arm's length a little bit, like as a showman. And yeah, he was early, but he's got his own life and different incentives now, and it's easy to judge. But having met him and seen his gyrations and rants, my God, I love the guy. I can't help but love Max and Stacy and others like him. I love him. Sorry, the energy and the spirit there.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
And so when he was on stage at the end of the first day, and it was kind of like open questions. Like the show was over, open questions before we go to the music and stuff. And the generosity of you, if you will, at his age, he's 67 now. Like about a week ago, turned 67, I think.
Yeah.
And the money or the situation he finds himself in now, he doesn't have to do anything necessarily, but put on a tournament, show up, golf, But he let so much of his time ranting and raving about core maxi stuff and the hijinks going on, as he has for decades about TradFi and all the scammy, gamey, everything. So he was doing open questions, and I sauntered over to sit in the crowd, and he's taking questions and being fun and funny. And I posted this video thing, and there was kind of a gap, like, any other questions? And there's kind of a moment, and I said, I can't remember exactly, but I'm sitting there recording him, and then as a pleb in the crowd to get attention, I said something to the effect of, isn't it important to run more nodes? Do you ever worry that there aren't enough nodes to maintain Bitcoin being decentralized and secure? Do we need to have more nodes? And Max agrees, but it's like, yeah, sure. Yeah. Run a node. We need more nodes. Run nodes. That's fine.
Yeah.
But that is not what I would like to see guys like Max say is, hey, Bitcoin needs you. And as a pleb, you can easily run a node. Hey, run a node, people. It's the easiest thing you can do. Other than getting off zero, you can easily run a node. Just run a node.
Yeah.
He doesn't say that. It's just kind of like, well, sure, of course, we need more nodes, but also centralization and mining is a concern. And he kind of went into the mining centralization thing, which I also get.
Yeah.
But I mean, hash rate, it's kind of like, well, yeah, really. Whereas there's only 25,000 nodes.
Reachable nodes, yeah.
Reachable nodes. So it's more impact at the network layer to run a node, spin up a node. You're 1 in 24,000 versus versus trying to tap into any hash rate contribution. That's again good, but
it's a longer arc, right?
It's a bigger business model to pierce at all.
Yeah, right.
And you're right, Ahmed. Max is a totally stand-up guy. He's got his view of things. But my God, he's got his values and fights for Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, he's great. But to your point, Fritz, I agree. That's the kind of engagement I would love to see, is someone like Max or any of these big luminaries in the Bitcoin circles to sort of, at least tangentially, as part of their spiel, go, Bitcoin great, it's amazing, fixes all these problems, it's, got to get off zero, fiat's bad, whatever the narrative is. At the tail end of it, to also tack on hey, if you agree with what I'm saying, you need to be running a node. This isn't automatic. It's not automagic. It, it requires participation. And that's that social network layer that I think really, really, really needs to get stressed a lot harder by a lot of people that have a voice in the space to make that argument, And that's kind of all I'm really pushing for. And if there by any miracle I get any sort of traction as a thinker in this space, that's the message I always want to be putting front and center. Is hey, I love this technology. I love the potential embodied in the technology. I legitimately now, after doing a deep time historical analysis of the origins of monetary systems and monetary power, I go, this is still, it survives that analysis and is like a very, very interesting pressure valve for the matrix. So I want to see that preserved because it represents a potential that can ripple out pretty significantly, but not if it just gets co-opted and subsumed into the greater matrix. Not if it becomes a thing that the matrix just kind of gobbles up, bends to its own needs, and then just keeps, it just becomes like some little toy for rich people, right? So that's the part I kind of would like to see not happen if possible.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin remains and grows deeper roots into TradFi. TradFi has to change. And I would hope that, so like guys like Sailor, guys that are all in, beyond all in, and find things important. Like Sailor is very pro ossification, if you will. And I guess recently there was a little bit of kerfuffle between Sailor and Jameson Lopp. They had maybe it was a crosstalk little, I don't know if it was a podcast or what it was, but they had a conversation where Sailor thought that concerns about Bitcoin are that it needs to ossify, and there's too many people coming in with their, hey, I found Bitcoin, I'm here to fix it, or we can improve it, or we can blah 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 blah. And I lean that way. And then Lopp was saying that the concern is that Bitcoin needs to remain decentralized, and that if too much ossification could create ways to
centralize
it, which is a technical, harder concept to kind of get your mind around how that happens and how that works and whatnot. But you don't see, so Lopp works on his end at the dev level. Sailor, you don't see him entering the space in terms of like, I mean, maybe he does, and maybe I'm just not aware, but supporting, say, things like development or node running or like architecture things. It's treasury stuff. So I would love to see guys like Sailor or others like at that level focus on what keeps Bitcoin physically, network wise, decentralized and secure. Like that's critical.
Well, I agree with you, and that's why these debates around Lopp and everybody else get really contentious and weird, because like the camp that, if you view this from a commodity theory, then the people that want to ossify make a lot of sense, right? But if you recognize that commodity theory is deeply flawed as an origin story, then you go, well, what Lops is saying, it starts making more sense. And so it gets, but neither one can predict the future. And I would also just point out, like, regardless of what Sailor's public posture is, he is running a TradFi company and he's playing in a TradFi world. And so his incentive structure is not necessarily aligned to infinite, an infinite right of exclusion that's not sovereign enforced. It's more like, well, this is, he is going to ordinarily orient towards, well, I need to preserve this as much as is tolerable to fiat rails, right? Because that's what he's put his bet on. He hasn't put his bet on like a non-sovereign right of exclusion to intangible property. He's staked his reputation, his company, and his whole future on this is something that TradFi can incorporate and use effectively. So those are different tensions that Sailor would benefit, I think, from maintaining the sovereign right, the non-sovereign right of exclusion to intangible property, but he can't promote it, and that's certainly not front and foremost in his rationale behind it. I think ultimately, if you pinned him down, he would rather see it gradually and slowly co-opted by the state and used to benefit TradFi rails over maintaining decentralized, permissionless, secure, non-sovereign rights of exclusion to intangible property. Like if he had to choose, I think he'd choose the former, not the latter. But the latter benefits him either way, but the former absolutely cements his trajectory, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I guess if you're going to make the biggest impact and create the biggest wake, he's piercing the steer into the heart of the beast in the best way that he can, given that is very fiat. But
well, he's already accelerated massively the co-optation by the state just by integrating it into state rails, right? And showing people like, hey, there's a way that you can control this beast and make it work for you is sort of problematic already, regardless of how he evangelizes it publicly, if that makes sense. So not to shit on Michael Saylor, like I think he's done a lot for Bitcoin adoption, and like
yeah,
but it's just to draw some boundaries and go, hey, we got to be careful of like what these personalities really represent, right?
yeah,
And what their unstated intangible goals really are. And like I said, he's already introduced a very different vocabulary around Bitcoin and what Bitcoin can be in fiat rails. And it's none of that is centered on, sovereign property rights. It's non-sovereign property rights. It's all centered on this is how you can incorporate this into your rails and make a lot of money. So it's a dangerous precedent is kind of what I'm pointing to here without crapping on Sailor's head.
yeah. I mean, as much as I love these guys, also you have to be kind of metaphorically willing to slay your heroes and not just be like believing in the personality and yet, loving them still.
Well, I think to be a conscientious Bitcoiner requires a certain intellectual humility, right? And a certain subservience to a greater goal, a greater purpose. And if you lack those characteristics, if you become tribal about it, if you become siloed, then you end up not being able to steward the unique asset to a place where you claim you want it to be, right? You end up captured inadvertently because you didn't recognize the game you're playing. And that's sort of what I'm trying to caution against right now. And we'll see how much, I mean, like I'm nobody in the space, so it kind of doesn't matter what I think or say. And my book,
wait,
pardon? Well,
your book's out.
yeah, maybe.
It should be the corollary upgrade to Lynn Alden's Broken Money. Like Broken Money's sure Broken Money in the big print. Those are there on your bookshelf, and yours is like, oh, but just wait.
Yeah.
Book 3 is here.
Yeah, and it changes. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know.
Well,
and, we had a nice long conversation.
Yeah, and I guess just to wrap it up here, and it's been a couple weeks now, but I don't know if you have, and I don't think we talked about this. I mentioned it on with others on here, but so was it a couple weeks ago on What Bitcoin Did? Saylor was interviewed by Danny on there. Did you hear about that or see that?
What is this? Sorry, I was a little distracted by Johnny's thing here. I'd like to see more
Johnny Midas imposters.
There you go.
Are there imposters there? I have not yet gotten an imposter profile on X yet, so I'm not. Apparently, we're not.
You haven't arrived.
Yeah, I haven't arrived until I have a scam account or spoof account.
That's the mark. That's the first hurdle, dude. Like until you get your first spoof account, you don't matter.
Yeah, right. Have to get monetized first, and then get
spoofed.
Well, yeah.
Again, sorry.
A couple weeks ago. So Saylor, Danny on What Bitcoin Did interviewed Saylor, and I was listening to it just because it's Saylor, and so I'm listening to it, and it's I don't know 20 minutes in or something, and I'm following along. In my mind, Danny is asking honest, reasonable questions, and basically, I had to go back and listen to it again because I was like, what triggered Saylor so toxically?
Oh, did he get triggered?
Oh my God. It's interesting to listen to if you've got an hour or a half hour, if you catch the middle part of it. Oh, that's funny. Maybe I was interviewing a
fake Johnny.
A fake Johnny. That'd be funny. But Danny was asking questions basically along the lines of MicroStrategy has its building its treasury company approaches to things. And yet, down in there somewhere, MicroStrategy has a revenue flow model of some kind. There is a business in there, and they've added to that and built off that. Sure.
Right.
There are other companies getting into the space that are simply raising money to do the infinite money glitch model and may not have a real solid foundational business model other than number go up, Bitcoin kegger, yada yada.
Right.
And it like basically, is that sustainable? Is that I don't want to say like ethical, but is it just some of the same old game to do money go up?
Holy shit! Sorry, while you were talking, I just kind of briefly peeked over at the chart, and ooh, you don't want to look at that.
Bitcoin.
Yeah. But anyway, so what did Trigger do, or what did Trigger do? What triggered Saylor? Like, what
Saylor,
did he?
So basically, Saylor's feeling is like, we are changing the system, and we're doing it in the hardest, strong way to do it that we can, and we are just so pro Bitcoin. This is how you do it, the way we could do it, and that basically any question of that is to shit on the movement, or you're questioning me. And he was getting really defensive, kind of aggressive at Danny, saying that like basically referring to people who ask such questions or have, project such FUD on what strategy is doing. Like, what is their beef? What do they want? Like, basically looking for problems in Bitcoin when Bitcoin is solving it, and we're just doing what we can in it. And anyway, I'm not going to summarize it very well, but it was interesting that basically Saylor got very defensive and really angry at Danny, and Danny took it like a champ, just kind of trying to explain and reconcile like what I'm trying to ask here. I'm not attacking you. I'm not attacking strategy. I'm just saying that there are other scammers that see your formula and would just want to jump in with venture capital money and start a little spin cycle.
Right.
Saylor got really defensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's easy to get misread in those conversations, right? But here, I'm going to do my best sling blade for you, Johnny.
Oh boy.
Some people calls it sound money, but I calls it a property right of exclusion.
It's like dumb at its face, but genius at heart.
You gonna have any mustard with them biscuits?
Yeah.
I think I did Forrest Gump the first round.
Life's like a portfolio of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check out that interview. But I mean, he got all bent out of shape over that impact theory guy because he was talking about chairs and shit.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. It's like, are you all in on your chair?
Yeah, like
but he got all. I am all in on my chair.
He was all.
Well, you don't trust that your chair's gonna hold you up?
Yeah, like, is that conviction? It's like, dude, fucking pump the brakes, buddy. It's okay, but whatever. French fried taters. Mm-hmm.
I know. I just imagine it'd be like Saylor's like, hey, I'm willing to be on your podcast. I'd be like, no, I'm good actually, because I am not smart enough. I mean, unless I just wanted to get torn to shreds for the pure clicks, maybe. Yeah. But I'm not smart enough or something enough. Robin did it. I mean, so Robin didn't at the time of that he interviewed Saylor, he didn't have his mind around all of the strike and stretch and things. I mean, we're just sort of learning. But Robin did good because he kept it positive and at my level of how I'd ask questions. But man, if you dig into details or question it at all, Saylor's like, fuck you.
Yeah, what are you saying right now? But he's
criticizing me.
He's reading implications into those questions that are deeper than what the questioner is implying, right? So we're speaking in different registers is why that's not working. Just like the impact theory guy was speaking in a different register. So he didn't pick up on Saylor's cues, and Saylor didn't pick up on his cues. So they're talking over each other, not to each other. And if you have a strong personality like Saylor and someone who wields enormous power because of his economic status, then you end up in a place where the guy misreads, doesn't bother to recalibrate because he doesn't have to. He never has to in real life. He can just immediately slam and just go, hey, shut the fuck up. You're wrong. I'm right. And here it is. So, I mean, it just makes for kind of a weird sort of thing. But to give you an update before because we're kind of getting close to time here anyway, I'm going to gonna share a little screen to make everybody sad. Let's have some sadness let's end on a sad note. Wah,
Sailor has
wah.
steel manned other
Wah, wah,
Oh.
wah.
Oh.
Wah, wah, wah. Number
Uh,
go up, baby.
um,
I mean, if you zoom out, it's not huge, but we are teetering roughly close.
oh,
Uh,
and thankfully, when I had a prominent leader in the organization I work with, and I told you about this before. Anyway, offline somewhere, where leadership in the entity where I work has gone from 3 years ago being LOL, beanie babies, lottery tickets, tulip bulbs, Bitcoin, haha. And then a year after that, it was like, it's just too volatile. I don't think we can. Not conservative enough. To this year, like, maybe we should. It's interesting. We have to think about it. Tell me more.
right.
And so after talking to you and looking at the math and the charts and the formula, applying a decent formula, I gave the leadership of my entity strong, specific, reasoned advice on why now is not a good time to go in if you want to go in. Like you haven't gotten off zero yet, and you've got a little bit of you got a lot of dry powder, but you want to go in kind of strategically, and you're looking at it like, well, when might be good? And I said what I told him a week ago. I think it was actually Sunday. Yeah, it was Sunday last week. I explicitly said, here's some reasons why, and we can talk about it more, but wait.
Yeah.
Now is not quite a right time. So imagine if I said, oh, yeah, it's always a good time, just get in. A guy like him on his fiat journey into Bitcoin would have say he had done that and then would have been like, whoa, it would have just been, oh, shouldn't have bought Bitcoin. Just the superficial high time preference, got in on Bitcoin and got wrecked. When now I'm wrecked.
Right.
I told him your advice. I said, if you're sitting on dry powder and you want to get in and go in good, wait.
Yeah.
That's not the astrology is not, the stars are not aligned right now.
Right.
So
I would point out just I love that, and I love that kind of works out that way. Like you have a very powerful social proof right now on the chart. You go, remember when I told you last week it wasn't good? This is what I was talking about. And he goes, oh, and that elevates you rather than if you go, anytime is good to get off zero. Like you look like an asshole had you gone with that route. Right now you can walk in and go, obviously I couldn't predict anything. I just want to point out, like, this is what I was talking about. Like, you're right to be concerned about the volatility. And this is why I was sort of saying this might not be the best time. It's like this kind of stuff is what I was seeing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, but it strengthens your case later when you do tell him to go in, because A, he's more likely to get a positive result from that interaction. And B, you gain a lot of credibility by not being a fucking baboon that's just like, oh, you gotta fucking go in every time, always be buying, never fucking buy, because those guys don't register with that. All they see is like, hey, I trusted this guy and I got boned. Like, this is terrible. And if he's got to wait 3 years to get his money back, you go, he's gonna think, oh, it's just some partisan hack. Like they're not gonna see a person who's thinking their way through a problem. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Well, so that was good advice to him. Like DCA, whatever have you, if you're already in and you DCA, fine, don't let it psych you out. But for when you're orange pilling somebody new, and I ran into this a year ago with a guy that similar situation, but high profile type of a guy with a little bit of cash, whatever, is Bitcoin curious. And what he did, and it was tough because it was a lot of sideways, just kind of janky action. It was hard to know what was going on. And he'd been thinking about it for a long time. And at the time I'd kind of just said, I mean, just get in, but give it years to sit. Don't look at it and screw with it and worry about it. Just, I told him just kind of get in, and he did. And it went down. And then he was like, Oh, fuck. Yeah, I knew I was kind of fudding on Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, well.
Oops.
But
yeah,
the alternative would have been said, oh, wait and wait and wait and wait. And I still might have said, wait. But that's only for someone getting off zero and has dry powder and needs that validation on a high time preference, unfortunately.
Right. Yeah. You want to send the right validation signal for someone that you're bringing in new. If someone already gets it, then, DCA is a great strategy, right? If you don't get it yet, don't steer people into it. Don't convince somebody to catch a falling knife is sort of my broader advice, but it worked out pretty well. Anyway, we're an hour and 35 now, dude.
Yeah.
Roll the ad. Roll the
ad. Yeah. Let's do the ad, which I get to talking and I forget, like, oh yeah, this is fun. Okay. Let me find a different one I haven't done in a while. I have different versions here. I don't even know what this one is. Let's do this one. All right, here we go. MicroSeed. MicroSeed is the best way to take self-custody. One single MicroSeed kit allows you to stamp as many seed phrases as you want. MicroSeed comes with stainless steel washers, a titanium washer, and even a nylon washer. And you can fit all 12 or 24 words on one single washer. With promo code FRITZ, you'll get 5% off your order. Get the kit and crank out all the keys you'll ever need forever. All right. It's good. It's the best. The tool you can have. I like, even when I've had Bitcoin artists on and when I show them this too, it is a work of art.
Oh, thank you, man.
It's an engineered work of art. It's like, have that on your desktop simply as a sculpture, and people are like, what is that? It's art. It's an art with a function.
Yeah, functional art. All right, well, cool. Sweet Biddy, if you're still here, thank you. It's always nice to see you. Johnny, as always, great to have you around. And
Johnny,
bring facts if you're still here. Thank you. It's good to see y'all.
Yeah.
And we'll see you again next week.
All right. Till next time. Bye, everybody.